My name is Maya. I'm 12 years old, and the night my father married his assistant, he handed me an envelope with a check for $500 and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Consider this your wedding gift, he said, straightening his tie in the hallway mirror. Amanda thinks it's best if you stay with your aunt for a while, just until we get settled. You understand, right? You're practically a teenager now. Practically a teenager. Those were his exact words. As if 3 months past my 12th birthday made me an adult who didn't need a parent anymore. I stared at the check in my hand, crisp, new, like he'd ordered it special for this occasion. Not a conversation, not a choice. Just money, as if that could replace the father who was choosing a new life that apparently had no room for the daughter from his old one. How long is a while? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. He waved his hand vaguely, already distracted by his phone. A few months, maybe. Amanda needs time to adjust. This is a big change for her too, you know. What about me? I wanted to scream. What about the fact that this is my house too? That I've lived here my entire life while she's been here for 6 months? But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I watched him grab his keys, watched Amanda appear at the top of the stairs in a silk robe that cost more than my entire wardrobe, watched them exchange a look that made it clear I was the inconvenience they were finally removing. Your Aunt Sarah will pick you up tomorrow morning, he said, already halfway out the door to his bachelor party. Pack light. You won't need much. The door closed. The house fell silent, except for Amanda's heels clicking across the floor upstairs, rearranging my life before I'd even left it. Do you want to know how being exiled from my own home with a check and a lie turned into the decision that made my father's perfect new marriage crumble into a scandal he couldn't buy his way out of? Stay until the end, and you'll see exactly how I made sure he would never forget what he threw away. The first problem hit me about 10 minutes after I heard his car pull away. My Aunt Sarah lived 4 hours north in a town I'd visited exactly twice, once for a funeral, once for Thanksgiving 3 years ago. She was my mom's sister, the one my dad barely tolerated, the one who'd called him a selfish coward at my mom's funeral 2 years ago when he'd spent the entire service on his phone. I sat on my bed, surrounded by 12 years of my life, photos, books, the stuffed elephant my mom gave me before she got sick, the science fair trophy I'd won last spring. Pack light, he'd said, as if I could just leave pieces of myself behind because his new wife found my existence inconvenient. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my dad's Instagram. Posted 2 hours ago, a photo of him and Amanda, champagne glasses raised, caption reading "New beginnings with my beautiful bride-to-be blessed fresh start." I stared at those hashtags, fresh start, as if I was the old dirt he needed to wash away. Something cold settled in my chest, something that felt less like sadness and more like clarity. I opened my notes app and started typing. Day 1, the exiled dad gave me $500 and told me to stay with Aunt Sarah for a while. He said I'd understand because I'm practically a teenager. Amanda needs time to adjust to being a wife, apparently. More time than she needs to adjust to being a stepmother to a kid who already lost one parent. Question: did he even ask Aunt Sarah if this was okay? Or did he just assume everyone would fall in line with his new perfect life? I added the screenshot of his Instagram post. Then I created a new folder on my phone and labeled it simply, Evidence. That night, I didn't pack light. I packed my mom's jewelry box, every photo album I could find, my birth certificate, my report cards, the Mother's Day and Father's Day cards I'd made over the years. I found my mom's will in the filing cabinet in the study, the one that specifically mentioned the trust fund she'd set up for my education, managed by my father until I turned 18. I photographed every page. Around midnight, I heard them come home, laughing, stumbling. I heard Amanda's voice drift up through the air vents in my room. God, it'll be so nice to finally have the house to ourselves. That kid's been like a ghost haunting us. Every time I look at her, I see him feeling guilty, and I'm so over the guilt trip. My father's response was quieter, but I caught enough. She looks just like Rachel. Sometimes I can't even look at her without. You know, this is better. For everyone. My fingers tightened around my phone. I hit record on the voice memo app and set it on my nightstand, pointed toward the vent. For the next 30 minutes, I captured every word. Every complaint about how awkward it was having me around, how I reminded him too much of his dead wife, how Amanda had done him a favor by suggesting I leave. Besides, Amanda's voice carried clearly through the darkness, we'll save a fortune not having to deal with all her expenses. That private school alone costs, what, $30,000 a year. We can put that toward the renovation. The trust covers her education, my dad said. For now, Amanda replied, and there was something sharp in her tone. But there are ways to restructure these things. Your lawyer said, let's not talk about this tonight, my dad interrupted. Let's just enjoy the fact that tomorrow morning we start fresh. When the voices finally faded and I heard their bedroom door close, I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I saved the file with a timestamp. June 15, 11:47 p.m. Dad and Amanda discussing getting rid of me. Then I texted my Aunt Sarah. Did Dad ask you if I could stay with you? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Aunt Sarah, what? No, honey, what's going on? My hands shook as I typed back. He's sending me to live with you tomorrow. He said you'd pick me up in the morning. He didn't ask you first. Aunt Sarah, what? The phone rang 5 seconds later. I answered on the first ring, pressing it to my ear. Maya, tell me exactly what happened, every single detail. So I did. I told her everything, the check, the dismissal, the pack light, the conversation I'd overheard. And when I was done, there was a long silence on the other end that felt heavier than any words. That absolute, she caught herself, took a deep breath. Honey, listen to me very carefully. I'm getting in my car right now. I'll be there in 4 hours, maybe less. Do not let them take you anywhere before I arrive. And do not delete anything you recorded. Do you understand? But I thought, isn't that illegal, recording people without them knowing? In California, you can record conversations you're a party to or that occur in your own home, she said, and I could hear her moving, grabbing keys, the sound of a door closing. You live there, that's your home. And sweetheart, what they're doing, shipping you off without proper legal custody arrangements, talking about restructuring your mother's trust, that's not just wrong. It might actually be illegal. What do I do until you get here? Stay in your room, keep your door locked. If they try to force you to leave before I arrive, you call 911. Tell them your father is trying to remove you from your home without proper custody arrangements and that you're a minor who doesn't feel safe. Can you do that? My throat felt tight, but I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Yes. Good girl, I'm on my way. And Maya, your mother made me promise something before she died. She made me promise that if your father ever put anything, his career, his new relationships, anything above you, I would fight for you. I'm keeping that promise right now. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, staring at my phone. The evidence folder now had 7 items: screenshots of social media posts, the voice recording, photos of my mom's will, my notes documenting the conversation. Part of me felt guilty, like I was betraying my own father. Like I was the bad daughter for not just going along with his plan. But another part of me, the part that had watched him choose everyone and everything over me for 2 years, the part that remembered my mom's face when she'd made me promise to never let anyone make you invisible, baby girl, not even your father, felt something else entirely. I felt seen, by myself if no one else. I grabbed my laptop and started a new document. At the top, I typed, timeline, how my father chose his new wife over his daughter. Then I started writing. Every date I could remember, every missed school event, every time he'd canceled plans, every promise he'd broken after my mom died. The time Amanda moved in 6 months ago without asking me how I felt. The time I'd found my mom's pictures removed from the hallway and replaced with Amanda's abstract art. The time I'd heard them arguing about whether I should change my last name to Amanda's maiden name to make the family unit stronger. I wrote for 3 hours straight. By the time the sun started creeping through my curtains, I had 12 pages. At 6:47 a.m., I heard movement downstairs, voices, my father's phone ringing, then footsteps fast and heavy coming up the stairs, a knock on my door, sharp and impatient. Maya, open up. I stayed silent, sitting on my bed with my phone in my hand, 911 already pulled up on the screen. Maya, I know you're awake, we need to talk. Aunt Sarah is on her way, I called back, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. She'll be here in less than an hour. Silence, then, why the hell did you call Sarah? You said she was picking me up. I wanted to make sure she knew. More silence. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating. Look, there's been a change of plans. You're not going to Sarah's. Amanda and I talked, and we think it's better if you go to that boarding school we looked at last year, the one in Connecticut. They have a summer program starting next week. My stomach dropped. You're sending me to boarding school? It's a good school, Maya. Great academics, lots of activities. You'll make friends. It'll be good for you to have some independence. Independence. The same word my father always used when he meant abandonment. And if I don't want to go, his voice hardened. You're 12 years old. You don't get to make these decisions. I'm your parent. What I say goes. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was 2 years of being treated like an inconvenience. Maybe it was the memory of my mom's voice telling me to never let anyone make me invisible. Actually, I said, my voice clear and loud enough to carry through the door, Mom's will says you're supposed to make decisions in my best interest. And I don't think shipping me across the country to boarding school one day after you get married is in my best interest. I think Aunt Sarah might have something to say about that too. The doorknob rattled. Open this door right now, Maya. No, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You're the one making it hard, I shot back. You're the one who decided I was too inconvenient for your fresh start. You're the one who wants me gone so badly you didn't even ask Aunt Sarah first, you just assumed she'd take me. Did you even think about what I wanted? Did you even ask? We can talk about this when you're calm. I am calm. I'm also not leaving this room until Aunt Sarah gets here. I heard him swear under his breath, heard Amanda's voice from down the hall asking what was going on, heard the sound of him walking away. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like power instead of fear. 23 minutes later, a car pulled into the driveway. I looked out my window and saw my Aunt Sarah get out of her beat-up Honda, her face set in an expression I'd never seen before, pure, focused rage. She rang the doorbell 3 times, then started knocking. I heard my father's voice from downstairs. Sarah, this isn't a good time. Open the door, Marcus, or I'm calling the police and telling them you're preventing me from doing a wellness check on my niece. The door opened. This is my house, Sarah. You can't just... Where is she? My aunt's voice cut through whatever he was about to say. Where's Maya? She's fine. She's upstairs being dramatic. Look, I appreciate you driving down here, but this is a family matter. Maya's going to boarding school next week. It's already arranged. Boarding school? The words came out flat, dangerous. You're sending a 12-year-old girl who lost her mother 2 years ago to boarding school, and you didn't think to discuss this with her mother's family first? I'm her father. I don't need to discuss my parenting decisions with you. Actually, a new voice cut in and I heard footsteps in the entryway. You might want to rethink that position. I crept to my door and opened it just a crack. Standing in my living room was my Aunt Sarah, my red-faced father, a confused-looking Amanda in her silk pajamas, and a woman in a gray pantsuit holding a briefcase. Who the hell are you? My father demanded. The woman pulled out a business card. Jennifer Chen, family law attorney. I represent Sarah Matthews in matters concerning her niece, Maya Chen Marcus. We have some concerns about the current custody arrangement and your fitness as a guardian. My father's face went white, then red. You brought a lawyer to my house? You tried to ship my niece off to boarding school without consulting anyone, Aunt Sarah shot back. What did you think was going to happen? Maya is my daughter. I have sole custody. Rachel's will, the lawyer interrupted smoothly, grants you custody contingent on your ability to provide a stable, nurturing environment. It also includes a clause stating that Sarah Matthews is to be consulted on all major decisions affecting Maya's welfare and education. Enrolling her in boarding school without notification qualifies as a major decision. I watched my father's expression shift from angry to calculating to worried in the space of 3 seconds. This is insane, Amanda spoke up. We're trying to do what's best for her. She needs structure, discipline, a fresh environment. She needs her family, Aunt Sarah said quietly. She needs people who actually want her around. Of course we want her around, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is temporary, just until... Until what? The lawyer pulled a folder from her briefcase. Until the house renovations are complete, until your honeymoon is over. Or until you've successfully accessed the education trust Rachel set up for Maya? The room went completely silent. I don't know what you're implying, my father said carefully. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. 2 weeks ago, you contacted your financial advisor about restructuring Maya's education trust. You claimed you needed to reallocate assets for tax purposes. Your advisor, who happens to be a friend of Rachel's family, found that request concerning enough to reach out to us. I watched the blood drain from my father's face. The lawyer continued, combine that with the sudden decision to send Maya to boarding school, a school that costs significantly less than her current private school, I might add, and a pattern emerges. One that suggests you're more interested in accessing your daughter's trust fund than in her actual welfare. That's not, I would never. Then you won't mind if we request a full accounting of how you've managed Maya's trust since Rachel's death. The lawyer's voice was pleasant, conversational, deadly, just to make sure everything's above board. Amanda grabbed my father's arm. Marcus, maybe we should? Be quiet, he hissed at her. That was the moment I chose to come downstairs. Every head turned toward me as I descended, still in my pajamas, my phone clutched in my hand. "Maya," my father said, his voice suddenly gentle, pleading. "Sweetheart, this is all a big misunderstanding. Why don't you go back upstairs while the adults talk?" I stopped on the bottom step, looking at him. At the man who used to read me bedtime stories, who used to call me his little scientist when I'd show him my experiments, who used to be my hero before my mom died and he decided being a father was too inconvenient. "I heard you last night," I said quietly. "Both of you, talking about how you'd save money once I was gone, about restructuring the trust, about starting fresh." My father's face crumpled. "You were eavesdropping." "I was in my room. You were talking loud enough for me to hear through the vents." I looked at the lawyer. "I recorded it. Is that allowed?" The lawyer's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "In California, you can record conversations that take place in your own home. Yes, that's allowed." "Maya," my father started, but Aunt Sarah held up her hand. "Let her talk, Marcus." I took a breath and looked at my father. "You told me Mom would want me to be brave. That she'd want me to stand up for myself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm standing up to you. Sweetheart, you don't understand adult situations. I understand that you told me to pack light because I wouldn't need much. I understand that you were going to send me to Aunt Sarah without even asking her first. I understand that when that didn't work, you tried to ship me off to boarding school. I understand that you've been trying to get rid of me since the day you met Amanda." "That's not true," he protested weakly. I pulled out my phone. "I have screenshots, dates and times you canceled on me, the messages where I asked if you were coming to my science fair and you said you were too busy. The time I texted you from the hospital when I broke my arm and you didn't respond for 6 hours because you were on a date." I looked at Amanda. "I have the photo you posted on Instagram last month. The one where you're standing in front of my mom's garden saying, 'Can't wait to tear this out and put in a pool.' That was my mom's memorial garden, the one she planted before she died." Amanda's face flushed red. "I didn't mean that was taken out of context. And I have the recording from last night," I continued, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "Where you both talked about how much easier life would be without me. Where Dad said he can't look at me because I remind him of Mom. Where you talked about ways to restructure my trust fund." The lawyer turned to my aunt. "I'd like to hear that recording if Maya's comfortable sharing it." I looked at my father. For just a moment, I saw something like panic cross his face. Then it hardened into anger. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said to me, his voice low. "You're destroying this family." "You already did that," I said. "I'm just making sure people know about it." Aunt Sarah stepped forward and put her hand on my shoulder. "Maya, you can come home with me right now, if that's what you want." I looked around the house I'd grown up in, the hallway where my height was still marked on the wall behind a coat rack, the kitchen where my mom taught me to make pancakes, the living room where we used to have movie nights before everything changed. "I want to get my things," I said. "All of them, and then I want to leave." The lawyer nodded. "I'll accompany you to make sure you can collect your belongings without interference." My father made a sound of protest, but the lawyer gave him a look that could have frozen fire. "Unless you'd like to add preventing a minor from collecting her personal property to the list of concerns we'll be bringing before a judge," he stepped back. It took me 2 hours to pack, not because I had that much stuff, but because I was meticulous. I packed every photo album, every piece of my mom's jewelry, every card and letter and drawing. I found documents I didn't even know existed, insurance papers with my name on them, bank statements for accounts I didn't know I had, emails between my father and his lawyer about minimizing dependent expenses. I photographed every single thing. The lawyer watched, occasionally taking notes, saying nothing. When I was finally done, Aunt Sarah helped me carry boxes to her car. My father and Amanda stayed in the kitchen the whole time, not speaking, not looking at me. I made one last trip upstairs to my room. It looked strange now, half empty, like a stage set after the play was over. I stood in the doorway and pulled out my phone one more time. I recorded a video of the empty space. "This was my room," I said quietly to the camera. "This was my home. My father told me to pack light, like I didn't deserve to take my own life with me. Like the space I took up was too much. This is what it looks like when a parent decides their child is inconvenient." I stopped recording and took one last look around. Then I left without saying goodbye. In the car, Aunt Sarah drove in silence for the first hour. I watched my old neighborhood disappear in the side mirror, watched the exit signs count down the distance between my old life and whatever came next. "You okay?" Aunt Sarah finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Is it normal to feel relieved and sad at the same time? After what you've been through?" Yeah, sweetheart, that's completely normal. What happens now? She glanced at me. Now we file for emergency custody. The lawyer will submit all your evidence, the recordings, the documents, everything. There'll probably be a court hearing. It won't be easy. Will I have to see him? Maybe, probably, but you won't be alone. I'll be there. The lawyer will be there. And Maya? She reached over and squeezed my hand. Your mom would be so proud of you right now. You know that, right? My throat felt tight. For what? For recording my own dad? For basically destroying his marriage? For refusing to disappear, she said firmly. For standing up for yourself when every adult in your life failed you. For being brave enough to tell the truth even when it was hard. That's not destroying anything, honey. That's survival. I looked down at my phone, at the evidence folder with 23 items now, at the timeline I'd created, at the proof that I had existed and mattered and deserved better than being someone's inconvenience. Aunt Sarah, I said quietly, the recording from last night, when they were talking about the trust fund, is that really illegal, what they were planning? Depends on what they were actually planning to do, but misusing a minor's trust fund. Yeah, that can be anywhere from a civil violation to actual fraud, depending on the circumstances. Why? Because I heard more than I told the lawyer. I heard Dad say something about a loophole his attorney found, about how if I was enrolled in boarding school, he could claim the trust was being used for education even if the school cost less, and the difference could be reallocated. Aunt Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's in the recording? Yeah, should I tell Ms. Chen? Yes. Absolutely yes. She paused. Maya, I need you to understand something. What you're doing coming forward with all this evidence, it could have serious consequences for your father. Legal consequences. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the man who'd handed me a check and told me to pack light. The man who'd chosen a new wife over his own daughter. The man who'd looked at me and seen only his dead wife's ghost, never his living child. He made his choices, I said. I'm just making sure people know about them. That's not what I asked. I met her eyes. Will it keep him from doing this to someone else, from treating his kids like inconveniences? He doesn't have any other kids. But Amanda's pregnant, I said quietly. Aunt Sarah nearly swerved off the road. What? I heard them talking about it last week. She's like 8 weeks along. They haven't announced it yet. I looked out the window. I kept thinking, is that why he wants me gone so badly? Because there's going to be a new baby, a fresh start, a kid who doesn't remind him of mom? My aunt pulled over to the side of the road and put the car in park. She turned to face me fully. Listen to me, Maya. None of this, not one single bit of it, is your fault. You are not too much. You are not an inconvenience. You are not a ghost or a reminder or a problem to be solved. You are a child who deserves parents that choose you every single day. Do you hear me? I nodded, but tears were running down my face now, hot and fast. And if your father can't see that, if he's so wrapped up in his new life that he can't appreciate the incredible, brave, smart daughter he has, then that's his loss. Not yours, never yours. She pulled me into a hug, and I let myself cry for the first time since my father had handed me that check. I cried for the dad I used to have, the one who disappeared when my mom died. I cried for the home I'd lost. I cried for the little girl who tried so hard to be good enough, mature enough, convenient enough to deserve love. But underneath the grief, there was something else, something solid and unshakable. I had evidence. I had truth. I had a voice. And I was done being silent. The custody hearing happened 3 weeks later in a courthouse that smelled like floor polish and old paper. I sat between Aunt Sarah and Ms. Chen at a long table, directly across from my father and his attorney, a stern-looking man in a suit that probably cost more than Aunt Sarah's car. My father wouldn't look at me. He kept his eyes forward, his jaw clenched, his hands folded on the table in front of him. Amanda sat in the back row, her hand resting on her stomach, her face pale. The judge, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the case file in silence for what felt like an hour. Finally, she looked up. This is a petition for emergency custody filed by Sarah Matthews, maternal aunt of the minor child Maya Chen Marcus. The petition alleges abandonment, neglect, and financial exploitation. She looked at my father. Mr. Marcus, you filed a counter-petition claiming that Ms. Matthews is attempting to interfere with your parental rights. Is that correct? My father's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client is a devoted father who has provided excellent care for his daughter since his wife's tragic death. This petition is baseless and emotionally motivated. Baseless, the judge repeated, looking at the folder in front of her. I have here 23 pieces of documented evidence submitted by the minor child herself. Voice recordings, photographs, timeline documentation, financial records. That seems like quite a lot of evidence for a baseless claim. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The child is 12 years old, Your Honor. She's upset about her father's remarriage. Children in these situations often misinterpret normal parental decisions as, I'd like to hear from Maya, the judge interrupted. She looked at me. Maya, do you understand why we're here today? I nodded and stood up, my legs shaky. Yes, Your Honor. And you compiled all this evidence yourself? Yes, ma'am. Why? The question hung in the air. In the back row, I saw Amanda lean forward. My father finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. Because I was afraid I was going to disappear, I said quietly, and I wanted someone to know I existed. The judge's expression softened slightly. Can you explain what you mean by that? So I did. I explained about the check, about being sent away, about the conversation I'd overheard. I explained about the boarding school, about the trust fund, about every missed birthday and canceled plan and broken promise since my mom died. Your Honor, my father's lawyer stood again, children don't always understand the complexity of adult decisions. Mr. Marcus was trying to provide structure and, I'm not finished, I said, and my voice came out stronger than I expected. May I continue, Your Honor? The judge nodded. I pulled out my phone and opened the evidence folder. I recorded my father and his wife talking about me on the night before I was supposed to leave. They said I was like a ghost haunting them. They talked about how much money they'd save when I was gone. They discussed restructuring my mother's trust fund. That recording was obtained without consent, the lawyer objected. It's inadmissible. In California, Ms. Chen stood, a minor child can legally record conversations that occur in their own home. The recording is admissible. The judge made a note. I'll listen to the recording in chambers. What else, Maya? I looked at my father. He told me Mom would want me to be brave. Stand up for myself, so that's what I'm doing. I'm standing up and saying that what he did was wrong. That sending me away because I was inconvenient was wrong. That choosing his new wife and new life over me was wrong. My voice cracked, but I kept going. And I'm saying that I don't want to go back. I want to stay with Aunt Sarah. I want to live somewhere I'm not just tolerated, somewhere I'm actually wanted. Your Honor, my father finally spoke, his voice rough. I love my daughter. I never meant to hurt her. I thought she'd be happier with more independence. You thought getting rid of me would make your life easier, I said, looking at him directly. You said so yourself. I have it recorded. His face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like he might cry. Then his lawyer put a hand on his arm and his expression shuddered closed again. The judge leaned back in her chair. I'm going to review all the submitted evidence, including the recordings. I'm also going to order a review of the trust fund management, as there are serious allegations of financial impropriety here. In the meantime, I'm granting temporary custody to Sarah Matthews. My father stood abruptly. You can't just take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away, Mr. Marcus. She's choosing to leave. There's a difference. The judge looked at me. Maya, you understand that this is temporary, correct? There will be more hearings, possibly therapy, definitely more conversations. This isn't over. I understand, I said. And you're certain this is what you want, to live with your aunt? I looked at Aunt Sarah, who was crying quietly, then back at my father, who was staring at me like I was a stranger. Yes, I said. I'm certain. The judge nodded. Then we'll reconvene in 30 days for a full custody hearing. Mr. Marcus, you'll be allowed supervised visitation during this time, if both parties agree. I'm also ordering family therapy sessions. She paused. And Mr. Marcus, I suggest you spend the next 30 days thinking very carefully about what kind of father you want to be. Because right now, the evidence suggests you've prioritized everything in your life except the child who needs you most. The gavel came down. It was over. In the hallway outside the courtroom, my father tried to approach me. Aunt Sarah stepped between us immediately, but he held up his hands. I just want to talk to her. 5 minutes, please. Aunt Sarah looked at me. It's up to you, honey. I thought about saying no, about walking away without giving him anything, but something in his face, something broken and desperate, made me nod. 5 minutes, Aunt Sarah said firmly. Right here where I can see you. She and Ms. Chen stepped a few feet away, close enough to intervene, far enough to give us space. My father knelt down so we were at eye level. His eyes were red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. Maya, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you feel unwanted. After your mom died, I couldn't breathe. Every time I looked at you, I saw her, and it hurt so much. I thought if I could just start over, if I could just have something that didn't remind me of what I lost. You didn't lose her, I said quietly. She died, and she left me, but you chose to lose me. It's different. He flinched like I'd hit him. I know, you're right, I was selfish and stupid and I hurt you. But Maya, please, give me a chance to fix this. I can be better. We can go to therapy together. We can. You had 2 years to be better, I interrupted. 2 years to choose me, but you didn't. You chose work. You chose Amanda. You chose everything but me. And now that there's consequences, now you want to fix it. It's not about the consequences. It's about you. I love you, Maya. You're my daughter. Do you? I asked. Or do you just not want to be the bad guy? Do you actually want me back, or do you just want to not look like the father who abandoned his kid? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, I said. Mom dying wasn't fair. You leaving me alone with my grief wasn't fair. You trying to ship me off so you could play happy family with Amanda wasn't fair. But I'm the kid, and you're the adult, and you're supposed to be the one who makes it better, not worse. Tears were running down his face now. How do I fix this? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to find my dad in there somewhere. The man who used to make me pancakes on Sunday mornings. The man who taught me to ride a bike. The man who cried at my mom's funeral and promised me we'd get through it together. I don't know if you can fix it, I said honestly. I don't know if I want you to, because even if you change, even if you go to therapy and become Father of the Year, I'll always know that you were willing to throw me away when I became inconvenient. I'll always know that I wasn't enough to make you want to be better before someone forced you to. Maya, I have to go, I said, stepping back. Aunt Sarah's waiting. Will you at least think about visitation? About giving me a chance? I looked at him for a long moment. I'll think about it, but Dad, if you actually love me, if you actually want to be my father again, you need to prove it. Not with words, not with promises, with actions, every single day. And maybe eventually I'll believe you. I turned and walked back to Aunt Sarah, who wrapped her arm around my shoulders. As we headed toward the exit, I heard my father call out one more time, I love you, Maya. I didn't turn around. But I whispered, just loud enough for Aunt Sarah to hear, then why didn't you show it when it mattered? 3 months later, I was sitting at Aunt Sarah's kitchen table, working on a school project when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Local attorney under investigation for trust fund mismanagement. My heart stopped. I clicked on the article. The investigation into financial advisor Thomas Chen's handling of minor trust funds has expanded to include several high-profile cases, including allegations that attorney Richard Morrison advised clients on methods to access their children's education trusts for personal use. Marcus Chen Marcus, a local business consultant, is among those under investigation for allegedly attempting to restructure his late wife's trust fund for his daughter, Maya, 12. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Aunt Sarah looked over my shoulder and read silently. Then she sat down next to me. How do you feel? She asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted him to, I don't know, see me, acknowledge what he did. Sometimes, Aunt Sarah said carefully, the truth has consequences we don't expect. That doesn't make the truth wrong. But what if he goes to jail? What if Amanda leaves him? What if the baby? I stopped, swallowing hard. Maya, look at me. She waited until I met her eyes. Your father made his own choices. He chose to prioritize his comfort over your well-being. He chose to explore ways to misuse your trust fund. He chose to work with an attorney who apparently makes a habit of helping parents steal from their own children. None of that is on you. But I'm the one who reported it. You're the one who told the truth. There's a difference. She squeezed my hand. And you know what? By telling the truth, you might have saved other kids. That article mentioned multiple cases. How many other children were being hurt and nobody knew because nobody spoke up? I hadn't thought about it that way. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Unknown, this is Amanda. I don't know if Maya will see this, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I was selfish and cruel. Your father and I are separating. I'm keeping the baby, but I'm done being part of hurting you. I hope someday you can forgive us. I hope someday you can forgive me. I showed Aunt Sarah. She raised her eyebrows. Are you going to respond? I don't know, should I? Do you want to? I thought about Amanda standing in my house talking about tearing out my mom's garden. I thought about her voice through the vents, calling me a ghost and inconvenience. I thought about her hand on her stomach, her pale face in the courtroom. Maybe, I said. Not now. But maybe someday. That's fair, Aunt Sarah said. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when you're ready, if you're ever ready. A week later, I got another message. This one from my father. Dad, Maya, I know you might not read this. I know you have no reason to believe anything I say, but I need you to know that I'm getting help. Real help. I started therapy 3 times a week. I quit my job to focus on getting better. The investigation is ongoing, but my attorney says because I didn't actually take any money from your trust, the charges will likely be reduced. But honestly, that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I failed you. I failed your mother. I failed myself. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for that, even if you never forgive me, even if you never want to see me again. You deserve better than the father I've been. I love you. I'm sorry. I read the message 3 times. Then I saved it without responding. At school, word had gotten around about the court case. Some kids avoided me. Others looked at me with a weird mixture of pity and awe. But my best friend Jasmine sat with me at lunch and said, "So I heard you basically took down your dad in court using evidence you collected yourself. That's pretty badass." I laughed despite myself. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it though? She took a bite of her sandwich. You stood up to an adult who was treating you like crap. You documented everything. You got yourself out of a bad situation. Sounds pretty badass to me. It was scary, I admitted. Yeah, but you did it anyway. That's kind of the definition of brave. That night, I pulled out my phone and looked at the evidence folder. 23 items that had changed my entire life. 23 pieces of proof that I had existed, that I had mattered, that I had deserved better. I created a new folder and moved all of them into it. Then I labeled it. The year I learned my voice mattered underneath, I created a new note and started writing. Dear future Maya, if you're reading this, it means you survived. It means you made it through one of the hardest years of your life and you came out on the other side. Here's what I want you to remember. You are not too much. You are not an inconvenience. You are not a ghost or a reminder or a problem to be solved. You are a person. A whole, complete person who deserves love and safety and people who choose you every single day. Dad made his choices. You made yours. And choosing to stand up for yourself, to tell the truth even when it was hard, to refuse to disappear, that was the right choice. Whatever happens next, whatever the future holds, you did the right thing. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt that. Love, Maya, age 12, summer 2024. I saved the note and put my phone down. Through the window, I could see Aunt Sarah in the garden, planting flowers my mom would have loved. In the distance, I heard kids playing, dogs barking, the normal sounds of a neighborhood where people actually lived instead of just existing. I was safe. I was seen. I was chosen. And maybe someday my father would actually become the man he should have been all along. Maybe he'd do the work, put in the time, earn back the trust he'd shattered. Or maybe he wouldn't. Either way, I would be okay. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. I didn't need someone else to validate my existence. I didn't need permission to matter. I didn't need to shrink myself to make someone else comfortable. I just needed to keep telling the truth, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Because the truth, my truth, documented and undeniable, was the most powerful weapon I'd ever wielded. And I was done being invisible. Epilogue 6 months later, I'm sitting in Aunt Sarah's living room on a Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rings. She looks at me, eyebrows raised. You expecting someone? I shake my head. She gets up to answer it, and I hear a familiar voice in the entryway. My stomach drops. My father appears in the doorway, and he looks different. Thinner, older. His hair is longer, and he's wearing jeans instead of the business casual he used to live in. Hi, Maya, he says quietly. Aunt Sarah stands behind him, her expression making it clear he's only here because she's allowing it. He asked if he could talk to you. I told him it was your choice. I look at my father, at the man who threw me away and then had to face the consequences. 6 months ago, I would have said no automatically, but 6 months is a long time. Okay, I say, we can talk. Aunt Sarah nods and steps back but doesn't leave the room. My father notices but doesn't comment. He sits down across from me, careful to keep distance between us. I've been in therapy, he says. 3 times a week, like I said. I've been working through, a lot, the grief I never processed after your mom died, the way I used work and Amanda as distractions, the way I failed you. He pauses, swallowing hard. My therapist asked me to write down every time I chose something over you in the last 2 years. Do you know how long that list was? I shake my head. 47 pages, he says, his voice cracking. 47 pages of times I prioritized everything else. My job, my relationship, my comfort, my grief, everything but you. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Because you deserve to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see how badly I hurt you. He leans forward, his eyes red. And I know saying sorry isn't enough. I know showing up here doesn't erase anything. But I needed you to know that I'm trying. I'm actually trying. The investigation, I say. What happened? I pled guilty to attempting to misuse the trust fund. I'm on probation for 2 years and I have to complete parenting classes and continue therapy. I lost my consulting business, but honestly, that's the least of what I deserve to lose. He looks at me steadily. I almost lost you forever. That's what really matters. I sit with that for a moment. Amanda, we're divorced. She moved back to Seattle with the baby, a little girl. She named her Rachel. He smiles sadly. After your mom. Something twists in my chest. Do you see her, the baby? Once a month, Amanda sends photos. She's trying to be better too. We both realized we were toxic together. We brought out the worst in each other. He pauses. She asks about you sometimes. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry. I got her text, I say. Did you respond? No, I wasn't ready. He nods. That's fair. We sit in silence for a moment. Outside, a car passes. Aunt Sarah shifts in her chair but says nothing. Why are you really here? I ask finally. Because I wanted to ask if you'd consider letting me try again, not as the father I was. I know that person destroyed any right to your trust, but as someone who wants to earn a place in your life, even if it's small, even if it takes years, even if you decide the answer is no. I look at him, really look at him. I try to find the man who handed me a check and told me to pack light. I try to find the person who looked at me and saw only his own pain. But all I see is someone who looks tired and broken, and for the first time in years, actually honest. I don't know, I say slowly. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I even want you in my life. I know that too. And I don't owe you forgiveness just because you're trying now. You should have tried before. Absolutely right. His voice is steady, but tears are running down his face. You don't owe me anything, but if you're willing, just willing to consider it, I'd like to show you I can be better. Not with words, with actions, consistently, for as long as it takes. I look at Aunt Sarah. She gives me a small nod, neither encouraging nor discouraging, just letting me know the choice is mine. Supervised visits, I say finally. Once a month, here at Aunt Sarah's, and if you miss even one, we're done. He nods quickly. Yes, absolutely, whatever you need. And therapy together, so there's someone to help us talk about this. Already set it up whenever you're ready. And Dad, I meet his eyes. I'm going to keep the evidence folder, all of it, not because I want to hurt you, but because I need to remember that I was right to stand up for myself, that I wasn't crazy or dramatic or wrong. Do you understand? Yes, he whispers. You were right, you are right, about everything. I nod slowly. Okay, we can try, but I'm not promising anything. That's more than I deserve, he says. Thank you, Maya. He stands to leave, and for a moment I think that's it. But then he pauses at the door. Your mom would be so proud of you, he says quietly. Not just for surviving this, but for refusing to let anyone, including me, make you small. She always said you had the strongest voice in any room. She was right. After he leaves, I sit in the silence, processing. Aunt Sarah sits down next to me. You okay? I don't know, was that the right choice? There's no right or wrong here, honey, just what feels true for you. And if it stops feeling true, you can change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. I lean against her shoulder. I'm scared I'm going to get hurt again. That's a valid fear, but you know what? You survived it once. You stood up for yourself once. If you need to do it again, you'll be ready. She's right. I have my voice. I have my evidence. I have proof that I matter, that I existed, that I deserved better. And this time, if someone tries to make me invisible, I'll know exactly what to do. 6 months ago, my father tried to erase me from his life because I was inconvenient. He handed me a check and expected me to disappear quietly. Instead, I documented everything. I recorded the conversations. I photographed the evidence. I told the truth even when it would have been easier to stay silent. And in doing so, I learned something I'll never forget. The truth, told by a voice that refuses to be silenced, is the most powerful weapon there is. My father is trying to be better now. Maybe he'll succeed. Maybe he won't. But either way, I'll be okay. Because I finally learned that I don't need someone else to validate my existence. I matter because I exist. Period. And no one, not my father, not Amanda, not anyone, can ever take that away from me again. So if you're reading this and you're in a situation like mine, if you're being treated like you're too much or too inconvenient or too anything, here's what I want you to know. Document everything. Save the texts. Record the conversations if it's legal where you are. Write down dates and times. Take photos. Keep receipts. Tell someone. A teacher, a counselor, a trusted adult. Don't suffer in silence hoping things will get better on their own. Use your voice. Even when it's scary. Even when it shakes. Even when people tell you you're being dramatic or difficult or disrespectful. Because you deserve to be chosen. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to take up space without apologizing for it. And if the adults in your life can't see that, then it's time to find adults who can. That's what I did. And it saved my life.